Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It is today, April 23rd, which is the 23rd day of National Poetry Writing Month, and it is also Shakespeare's birthday. Um, so I thought today would be a good day to write a sonnet and talk about sonnets. So for National Poetry Writing Month this year, which I usually don't take part in every year, but seeing as I had a lot more time on my hands, I thought I would set myself a challenge of writing a sonnet every day. Um, and what we're going to do today is just talk through sort of my process of writing a sonnet in a short amount of time, and talk about why we should do this. Um, a sonnet is an old, old traditional form of poetry, and most, well, maybe not most poets now, but lots of poets now really shy away from formal modes of poetry, from poetry with uh, regular structure and rhyme. And I think that that is a great shame. That's not necessarily to say that when you are writing a poem for the stage or for a journal or for print that it needs to be in a form. I think what we're going to talk about today is the benefits of using sonnet writing as an exercise. The same way, you see football players running, like dribbling a ball around, 10 or so cones on a pitch during their training. Well, are they in a match ever going to be dribbling past 10 perfectly spaced opponents on the pitch? No. When you play guitar and you do up and down the scales, or any instrument like that, how many songs are you actually just going to play the same scale over and over again? You're not. But exercises like that, they train your fingers, they train your feet, and I think that an exercise like writing a sonnet and regularly writing, whether it's a sonnet or another form of poetry, exercises the mind, it exercises the creativity, it exercises your poetic uh, muscles. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to quickly talk about sonnets, what sonnets are, what we do, and then hopefully I'm going to write a sonnet within about an hour and a half, and it'll be finished by 2 o'clock. Um, I probably should say straight up here, we may not be writing a sonnet in 90 minutes. I usually, over this past month, have been writing a sonnet about a day, coming up with a line or two, sporadically throughout the day, sort of coming up with a line or two, leaving it, and then half hour later, sort of letting those lines percolate in the brain, and half an hour later, 2 hours later, coming along and adding a few more lines to that. So, are we? So yeah, it might be very well that we're not going to be finishing a sonnet by 2 o'clock, and we're just going to have to go along. And also, I can absolutely guarantee it's not going to be a good sonnet. But again, that's not the point of this. The point isn't that I'm going to come out with a sonnet that I would think that's brilliant. I'm going to start performing that and inserting that into my poetry sets, or I'm going to start sending this off to some places because it's something that I've literally written off the top of my head straight away. No editing apart from whatever editing I had to do to make it fit a rhyme scheme or pattern of rhythm. But it's just going to be, I found it a really great way to step out of the usual poetry zone and find ways to write poetry that surprise me and get some new things. So we're just going to quickly go into a little presentation, speed writing sonnets. So I'm going to go through this quickly. I think everyone knows what a sonnet is. They're probably the most studied form of poetry. I'm sure everyone who's spent any time in a English class from age 11 knows what a sonnet is. But I think it's worthwhile just quickly going over things just so we are familiar with some technical terms I might use. I don't really get too technical with the speed writing of sonnets, obviously, but just going through with anything like that. And if people have any questions, I believe at the moment we're working on YouTube because we've had some difficulties with Facebook Live. I'm sure most people can, either go to like the Whiskey and Beards post for this and leave comments on there, or if you're a friend on Facebook, just message me. And if you've got any questions along the way, just ask me some questions. But yeah, let's just quickly get into sonnets just so we're all on the same page before we start writing one. So, features of the sonnet. And I've split this into the most important features when it comes to speed writing rather than, say, the most important features overall. So, a sonnet's got 14 lines. Pretty straightforward. It has got, and this is incredibly, this usually gets undertaught in schools, I think, but the sonnet has got a very important feature called the volta. In traditional Italian and English sonnets, I think most sonnets really, but there's probably a form or two that changes this. The volta occurs between the 8th and 9th lines. And the volta is a word basically for a twist, a change. So basically, the first, it's not quite half, I guess it'd be like the first 2/3 of a sonnet will introduce an idea and expand on an idea. And then on the 9th line, the poem will change. So it will still stick to the same, well, it'll change the rhyme scheme slightly. It will still stick to a rhyme scheme and the regular rhythm of it. But the poem will give a new perspective, or it will, if there's been some sort of argument in the poem, the argument will change or turn. If it's a poem that's a bit more of a narrative, like a shift in the narrative will occur. That's a very important feature of the sonnet. A regular rhyme pattern. There's lots of different rhyme patterns. I've been writing all my sonnets as Shakespearean sonnets, which I'll talk about a bit why I've chosen to do that. But there are lots of rhyming patterns. There's rhyming patterns that have got special names, some of which I'll discuss. And there's also, who's I reading? I believe I forgot the name, but there's some writers who will just do sonnets as couplets, rhyming couplets. There'll be some who do sort of really weird rhyming patterns where it's not necessarily, it's sort of a machete rhyming pattern where the rhymes are just like, there's not sort of regularity to the rhyme in pattern, but it'll just shift throughout the poem. Split into 3 or 4 sections. Again, this is for the sonnets, speed writing sonnets I've been writing, and I find split into 3 or 4 sections is a very good tool for speed writing sonnets. It's not a feature of every sonnet. Petrarchian sonnets, I'll discuss some of the more different types of sonnets as we look at some in a second, really only have 2 sections. Spenserian sonnets, I think, tend to only have 2 sections. Miltonic sonnets, so sonnets that John Milton writes, can even really have like each couplet being its own section. So this isn't, um, yeah, this is for the speed writing sonnets that I've been writing, and certainly if you want to start, speed writing a sonnet, you could change the sections. But I find 3 or 4 quite a really good way to speed write sonnets. Again, I'll explain that. The topic of the sonnet is usually, I've said, philosophical, ethical, spiritual problem. So there's usually a problem introduced that is then developed and talked about and argued about in the sonnet, or it's of course about love. And the final one is iambic pentameter, which again is a lot of many English sonnets are written in iambic pentameter. Petrarchan sonnets I find tend to be more in a hexameter. There's a regular rhythm, that's certainly true. Some sonnets are written in a sort of trochee hexameter. Again, for the speed writing sonnet, I probably should change the title to the speed writing sonnets. I've been doing iambic pentameter. We're going to discuss this in a bit because, if I'm trying to write a poem in an hour and a half, having to literally go through and sort of really structure a proper iambic pentameter is just not possible, and will take some of the fun out of writing it. So that's why it's last here. We sort of take our cues for writing this from iambic pentameter. We're not at all strict about actually sticking to a proper iambic pentameter, simply because that's not, to me, the point of this exercise. But I've still included it rather than saying a regular rhythm because, and we'll discuss this, it is a very natural way of writing, and therefore, even though I tend to count the syllables but not actually think about the regular rhythm, when you look back on them, you notice, oh, actually, it's more or less fit into an iambic pentameter. So, yeah, let's go look at the first sonnet here. This is Shakespeare's Sonnet 18, probably one of the most famous sonnets in the world. I have split this into the 4 sections. And you can sort of about 3 or 4 because these 2 sonnets here, 2 stanzas here belong together. And yeah, as you notice, I have split them apart into 4 sections. Most sonnets do tend to be written in just one stanza with the rhyme sort of new section, but they're not actually putting in these line breaks here. But I've done that just to make it a bit easier for us to see what we're talking about. So you can see the rhyming pattern here is A, B, A, B. So that is, these 2 we call A, these 2 we call B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. So it's got cross rhyme, I believe is a term for it. So there's a rhyme, a new rhyme, rhyme the first line, rhyme the 4th line, the 2nd line. And then, although we call it A, B, even though this pattern repeats here because this is a new rhyming word. And you can look at the structure of it. So the first line really argues, is setting out the argument of the poem. The speaker is saying, is the person I love as beautiful as a summer's day? So shall I compare this to a summer's day? Expanding on that slightly. So actually saying, no, you're more lovely than a summer's day. The second stanza, again, kind of expands on this. So you can say that this is actually just one section in itself. But it usually goes a little bit of a progression. So you can sort of say that's either 2 or 1. And then the volta occurs here, and you've got the 3rd section, but thy eternal summer shall not fade. So in fact, saying that progressing the poem in the sense that while this is sort of very looking at the poem quite straightforward and saying you want my lovely summer's day because you're better than summer in many ways, saying that you transgress summer, the person transcends summer. The love that the speaker and the poet have is so beautiful, amazing that it goes beyond the sort of temporal ideas of summer. And then the couplet, rhyming couplet at the end, kind of sums up the poem and closes it off in a nice bow, which is the function of the couplet in a Shakespearean sonnet. So we look at a few more examples here. So got Wilfred Owen Anthem from Dean's Youth, again A B A B A B. We'll put a full stop there. So talking about here, so Wilfred Owen, if anyone who doesn't know, World War I poet. You know, I guess what we're trying to look at when we look at these is how the poem progresses. So there are some poems where the Volta is very literal. If I may, yeah, Don Patterson's sonnet Soul here. So it introduces this where we talk about the body having a temporal, like solid construction. And then, so this is the first section introducing the idea of the body, the physical body. The second section here talking about the soul, where the soul lives outside of time. Here, John Patterson sort of comparing the soul to the mind and burying it. So, one section, two section, the third section here. There's a Volta here because it's now maybe instead of talking about the body and the soul and such abstract terms now comes in here and talks about how the soul can be shut off to things and keep quiet. So here talking about, sort of the body and the soul being two separate things, talking about the relationship now with the Volta between the body and the soul, and this final couplet here, talking about sonnets as we'll talk about the soul. Reaching out to the body and trying to comfort the body. So closing off the idea with this couplet here. So you can see how that structure works. And the reason we use this when speed writing sonnets is it's just I think it's a natural way. We all know about the act structure in plays and movies. We've got the beginning, the middle, and the end, and then this is sort of a coda, like an epilogue. So I think it's something that people could come naturally to. You don't need to think about these. A lot of the sonnets I'm showing here are quite high-minded philosophical things, but that progression I find is very natural. It also helps progress the poem, both for the reader and also for writing it. You can quite easily set out 4 lines and then progress to a new 4 lines, change the idea a bit, And that's very useful for thinking about, not just in writing sonnets, but writing poetry as a whole. I think writing like that um, helps structure your own poetry. And even if when you then either take a sonnet you have speed written or write, or just writing generally, this kind of structure is a very powerful structure that readers communicate with well. And so you can quite easily take this and add a line or two to the first one, shorten this, extend this or whatever. And so you'll come out of something that doesn't have 14 lines or a regular rhyme pattern, if you don't want to. But it's a very good backbone for a poem. And even if it later completely changes, here we go. So I was looking for my copy of Don Patterson's 40 Sonnets. And you can see here, it's a collection of poetry where it contains 40 sonnets, but he really explores what the sonnet can be. So this, so I just realised I was holding up a book to a camera that no one can see. So 40 sonnets by Don Patterson. So you can see here, I know this is mirrored, I'm too lazy to try and flip the video back, but this poem here has got 14 words that are split into 3 sections, and it progresses. It's sort of like the barest bones sonnet. So it's very hard to figure out to move cameras in. There we go. Right, I thought I flipped it there. Well, anyway, you can see very actual, the most barest bone sonnet that ever comes. Literally 14 words split into it. And then in other ones, we've got this one, which is actually a sonnet that is made up of rhyming couplets and actually into, 7 sections. Almost like 7 little poems, couplets, that as a whole become a sonnet. This poem here, which has an interesting rhyming scheme. I know it's going to be hard to sing when it's mirrored, but basically all of these longer lines rhyme with each other, and all of these shorter lines rhyme with each other. And you can see there, again, we've got this. It's 7, so he actually kind of splits this into 7 sections. But again, obviously the idea of the iambic pentameter is completely gone in there, but he's still using that sonnet structure as a backbone to the poem. And then he's got this here, whether you'd call that, a prose poem or a short story. I don't know, but again, I know it's sort of hard to see this being mirrored, but like the long opening section, here's the Volta. Go there, and then kind of right at the end, there is this little coda with these ending lines. So again, he in this collection really dissects what a sonnet is and what the importance of a sonnet is. So 2 more sonnets here. Edna St. Vincent Millay I've only got it here. This is a Petrarchan sonnet. So I realised I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Yeah, Petrarchan sonnet. So this is A, B, B, A, A, B, B, A. It's sort of an envelope rhyming scheme, and it's split into an octet and a sestet. And this sestet, it is C, D, E, E, C. No, wait. C, D, E, D, C, E. The sestet in Petrarchan sonnets quite often will be like a C, D, E, C, D, E, but can be, you know, all sorts of rhyming schemes. The octet tends to be always this A, B, B, A, sometimes an A, B, B, A, C, D, D, C. And this is actually the original sonnet, more or less. And often Petrarchan sonnets, the volta is really obvious. So, you know, this first stanza here talks about, you know, this idea of like the memories of past loves, sort of it. So, you know, ghosts tonight, and maybe even the idea that some of our loves have now died. And then this shift, and then this shift to where it's sort of looking towards the past, she's now looking to the future, and you know, introducing this new idea of how she's now, you know, facing a future where she may not be having any sort of new loves in her life. Then E. Cummings' sonnet here, which has got, you know, I don't know what you'd call this as a rhyme scheme, barely a rhyme scheme is the way to do it. And it is a Shakespearean sonnet. But, you know, deceive and have, reveal and livings, if and leaf, kind and beyond. I guess that would be a slant rhyme where it's that the consonants are rhyming. Yeah, I think that's what we call that, slant rhyme. You know, I don't need to break on the Cummings rhyming scheme because my rhymes throughout this thing have been, you know, incredibly hazy. Yeah, okay, so just got a question. With all the possible variations, what are the key factors that classify a poem as a sonnet? So, for me, I would say the 14 lines, a rhyme scheme, and the volta, the structure of a poem, where whether it's split into, I mean, on the whole, split into two sections, that it contains a volta at the 9th line. And that's really what Don Patson in his collection does. And, you know, he shifts where that volta is. So it's not always at the 9th line. But I think in his collection, it's really, although in schools, because I think, you know, 14 lines, a regular rhyme scheme and iambic pentameter in English sonnets are sort of the easiest to teach because they're very visible, rather than the volta, which can be a bit nebulous and, you know, hard to see where a poem is shifting. But really, that structure of a volta is the most important thing. So, two sections in a Petrarchan sonnet. The Shakespearean English sonnet and also some other like Spenserian sonnets break it up a little bit more, but it's really that volta, and because of that volta, it's also philosophical or ethical or spiritual questions in a poem raised in section 1 and not always answered because there's often questions you can't answer, but the sort of understanding that the poet gets to at the end. So that's really the key factor, is that I would say 14 lines is the next one. Nearly all, apart from when Don Patson is sort of really picking apart the sonic structure, like in that long prose poem. Yeah, all the rest of his poems in this book have 14 lines. Those are the two that I say every sonnet should have. Volta, 14 lines. Then a regular rhyme would be most, but if not all. A regular rhythm, most, but if not all. And then everything after that is actually into, not every sonnet needs that. Quite often have it. You can almost think of it as, there's only two things every sonnet has. English sonnets tend to always have a regular rhyme scheme and regular rhythm. So yeah, we're going to quickly talk to meter. I've already talked about sonnets a bit too much for this. I'm not going to go into this because, quite simply, it's not something I've been doing when I speed writing sonnets, because it's just too hard to try and do this way, speed writing sonnets. But it's just worth talking about this so we know what we're up against when we're up against the ideal of a sonnet. So English sonnets, again, I think Russian sonnets tend to be a hexameter. Italian sonnets tend to be a hexameter, but English sonnets, the traditional English sonnet, written in iambic pentameter. What does this mean? Iambic means it contains iambs. I've got this image from just Wikipedia here. Iamb is a metric foot that contains two syllables, unstressed and stressed. And pentameter means that there's 5 of them in a line. So you look at the sonnet 18 here again. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? So unstressed, stressed. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. And yeah, this is where we get into the actual important bit here. It is near impossible to find a sonnet that actually always uses iambic pentameter. I'm sure there are examples. But, this iambic pentameter, I think people get very intimidated it. But, Shakespeare here breaks it. Thou art more lovely and more. So this is an anapest. Unstressed, unstressed, stressed. Lovely and more temperate. And what's more important about this when we're speed writing sonnets is just sort of keeping in mind the general idea of it. And I spotted earlier, is it here? Nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Yeah, so this line here is actually 11 syllables, which is an important point. I think something when people talk about iambic pentameter, I think it always needs, that then means that the line has to have 10 syllables a line. But actually, especially here where he's inserted this anapest here, that naturally means that that line is going to have more than 10 syllables, and that's fine. What is actually important is beats in a poem. So here I've got an image of John Donne's Holy Sonnet 10, which is one of the greatest poems ever written. And the person here, and I should probably go back and I'll make sure to link who did this because this is really helpful, has marked it here and put in here, so you can see here deaf B, that's a spondy, right there, yeah, spondy. It's 2 stressed syllables. Deaf be not proud, though some have called the, that's a bit of a hard thing, called the mighty, a trochee there with the stress and then the unstressed and dreadful, for thou art not so. So what's important about this is when he chooses to break it. He has to say here, I mean, I'm thinking, thou slave to fate, chance, kings. I put in this spondy here where it, you know, breaks the iambic pentameter to have two stressed syllables. It really drives home, gives a nice thumping beat. So this is now the after the volta. By the way, you can see here the Petrarchan rhythm. Gosh, you know, I never realised that does rhyme. I to be honest, when I would be marking a rhyme, would actually just say this is GG. I don't know if he purposely chose to make die rhyme with D internally, die internally. I can't question the fact that this person thinks D rhymes with die, but anyway. But anyway, yeah. So look, he here is now entering the volta and the new sestet, and so that's a great time to put in to change the rhythm. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings. That's not you know, he's broken it deliberately there because it really kicks off this new section of the poem. And desperate men, and then, you know, again in this rhyming couplet, this is where John Sung is basically getting up into Death's face and, you know, confronting him, saying, who cares about death? You know, I'm of no fear of death. One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. Again, breaking that, you know, fuck off death. Death, thou shalt die. And so this was sonnet I wrote, and you know, you can see. So when I wrote this, all I was counting was these beats, just in my head, just saying, right, how many beats, stress beats, do I have in a line? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can see that it sort of comes into an iambic pentameter quite naturally, yeah, especially this stanza here. Sun sick. I might actually say that's probably not. I've said that is a stressed syllable. Actually, sun sick is not stressed. So sun sick, uneasy, knotted and half bright. I'm over needy in a cup half full. I'm out of whack with my sporrow fight. I'm still pushing when I need to pull. Yeah, I mean, not much of this really sticks to an iambic pentameter. But it's got 5 beats per line. So iambic pentameter is important because it does naturally fit the rhythm of English speaking quite well, and that's why it's so popular. But even, you know, when I was reading that last poem or the first Shakespeare's poem, you can see it is a natural, it's a very stage way of speaking. It is the rhythm that is used in lots of Shakespearean plays. When we're writing contemporary, we want to just write, you know, how we tend to write is to speak as naturally as possible. And so using 5 beats per line is a very nice way of keeping a regular rhythm, so that when people are reading it or listening to it, it gives a nice structure that they can fall into. If I was going to edit this poem, I would probably start to try to change things in my own head. Maybe I'd actually say, again, this is something I've done myself and I do it quite quickly. I'd probably say that is actually iambic there. But I'd probably try to make sure this first stanza was a really well done iambic pentameter, because that quite nicely leads people into regular rhythm that they can follow to and feel the beat of. And then when you start to break it, you can add in interesting things here. So you can see here now, you know, so this first stanza is opening up the idea of someone being in their own head, you know, feeling spending too much time with their own mind. Here expanding on it, and you know, because it's now the anxiety of the speaker is coming forward, that's a good time you can add in some breaks to it. An anarchist here, I'm still pushing, so I've gone from a iambic to a trochee here. I'm still pushing when I need to pull. Just breaking it slightly adds a bit of interest to the line. And I've also chosen this example just to quickly highlight something about rhyme. You can see here, something important about rhyme is when we rhyme, we want to make sure that the rhyme ends on a stress. And you can see here, I've sort of quite literally done this in that there is a, that I've almost ignored this me and actually put the rhyme slightly into the poem. So covers me, buffers me, conservatory, suffers me, over me, older me. So actually the rhyme is here. The, again, technically probably actually rhyming, auto rhyme there. The and the again. I don't know whether any of these other sonnets really yeah, you can kind of see here in Wilfred Owen. So this one, yeah, this is 2 syllables, or here choirs and shies. You can actually see the important rhyming thing isn't the tool, because that's he's there done a trochee where the stress is on cattle. So is this syllable that is being rhymed. Choirs and shires again. When you have the weak syllable ending a line, you want to make sure that the rhyming word syllable is actually the first one. And with English language, that's quite easy because often these weak syllables will be syllables like as, or you know, brightly, sprightly, that le on a lot of adverbs. So you know, technically you want to rhyme both, but because there's so many words with that weak rhyming, with that weak ending, and that repeat themselves, that's quite easy to do. So yeah, I think that is enough of just explaining what the sonnet is. I'm just going to make sure, am I still sharing the screen? But so the important things when we're speed writing a sonnet, at least for me, is having 14 lines in a poem, having 5 beats in a line, roughly 10 syllables, quite often go to 9 or 11. I wouldn't really go, you know, to 8 or 12. If I think there's some sonnets I've written in this part, but I have gone to 12, and it's just been like, I've got to write one a day. I can't, you know, torture myself over an extra syllable. But when we speak it, and we'll probably write some 12 syllable lines while we're trying to write this, it just feels off. So it's not something you know, a lot of these things will just feel off. The things about rhythm will just feel off to your ear. So I sort of do a quick count when I'm reading, when I'm writing them, but it will come quite naturally. And the important thing of why to do this exercise is having regular rhyme is enjoyable. It's enjoyable to listen to. Pattern recognition for humans is basically how we get enjoy nearly all of our art. You know, how many people watching this absolutely love atonal, you know, free jazz. I'm sure there's a few people I quite like from time to time, but most of the music I listen to has, you know, 4 chords in a verse, those same 4 chords, maybe with an extra 1 or 2 chucked in the chorus, 3, 4 choruses in a song, and verses split in between. That is the music that we love to listen to. And it's the same for rhythm. It's enjoyable to listen to. It's very nice on the ear. And lots of people are going to be writing sonnets will prefer to have something more open and a form that has more play in it, for something that when they're writing it that they are actually wanting to do on stage or send out for publishing. And that's absolutely most of the stuff I would perform on stage are not sonnets. But going through this exercise and writing these is sort of, you don't want to take back to basics because sonnets are actually quite a tricky form to write, but by going back to a form that really compacts a lot of these devices into it, the regular rhyme, the regular rhythm, the good structure of a poem, emphasizes why we do it, and also putting yourself in a form, I think, is a very powerful thing to do, because it allows us to write lines or metaphors or so on that we wouldn't normally write. If you're ever feeling like, oh, I'm always writing the same sort of thing, start writing some sonnets or other forms, tanku, Japanese, Chinese tanku, sestinas, villanelles, start writing in those forms, because you will create turns of phrase that if you're just allowing yourself to write whatever, you won't write those things. But by forcing you to write things like that, you'll come up with images and ideas that you would never come up with usually, and then you can take those and put those into other poems. And you say, well, actually, I'm still not happy with this sonnet, that's fine, but you can take what you've written, what you've practiced, and put them into other poetry. Okay, so let's start writing. Probably, well, I don't think we've got anyone coming on at 2 on Whiskey and Beards, so hopefully we will. We might have to go slightly beyond 2, but I'm still going to try and finish by 2, which means because I spoke way too long about sonnets, I've given myself even less time. But I don't think anyone really wants to be watching this for the whole afternoon. So I'm just gonna try and finish by 2 a sonnet, and we're just gonna, while I'm doing this, talk about things that come up while we're writing it. So where was it? I've got Ambit 230. My favourite poetry journal from autumn 2017. I've got a poem by Sarah Murphy called In Defence of Floating. And just to kick us off, some of the sonnets I've come up with my own first line, some I've taken from other things. To kick us off, because the first line is always the most difficult, I'm taking a line from this, which is hearts everywhere are evacuating. Yeah. I was just checking that was 10 syllables. Right. And then I'm going to go straight to rhyming dictionary. As you know, if I'm writing sonnets in my notebook, which I can't see around me, I'll just write out, okay, evacuating, dating, mating, slating, frustrating, and come out until I find a word that I think will work. I'm doing this in a short amount of time, so I'm just going to use rhyming dictionary. you don't need to feel any shame about using a rhyming dictionary. Yeah, you can obviously come up with all of these words if you spend long enough time doing it. But let's take advantage of the beauty of technology. So I immediately will look for the rhyme that's going to appear in my third line, because that's then going to help inform me about what I need to do to reach that. So hearts everywhere are evacuating. And I think that kind of has an idea. I mean, what this poem is going to change and evolve as I write it. I'm just going to use this sort of free act structure to inform me writing it. Quite a lot of the ones I've written, sort of bleed over between the things, because again, we're doing this speed writing it rather than trying to make a perfect sonnet. I probably should just hearts everywhere are in fact you. Yeah, that's got 5 beats. Really, when I'm writing sonnets, I won't actually count the beats. I just trust my ear. That I know what the I just trust my ear. And when I go back, I might suddenly pick up, oh wait a minute, that's slightly too long, and you can edit that. That's not the point of this exercise. So I'll just trust my ear in that. Okay, so the rhyming word, captivating. Rating. Yeah, we're going to get to the section where there's going to be a lot of silence because I'm having to think. So I apologise for that. But if people want to ask me questions while we do this, please go ahead. Or even give suggestions, because we might need to have a bit of help to try and get this done in a reasonable amount of time. I think complicating. Complicating would be good, because that's going to help lead us into the next, naturally into like the development which comes in the second stanza. Hearts everywhere of evacuating. Because we've got hearts, I think I want to try and keep us in a physical space. I've got an idea. I won't literally come up with the third line, but sort of an aim in my head. I've got an idea in my head of like pulses, the pulse complicating. With racing pulses complicating. That's 9 syllables, but with racing pulses complicating. It's only 4. Yeah, if racing pulses complicating, that does feel a little bit off, but let's see. I'm gonna that's gonna be like my target, but when we get there, we might slightly change what that actually ends up as. But I'm gonna keep. Well, I think that racing pulse is complicated. So hearts everywhere evacuating. Probably want to just slightly expand on that. Okay. So I'm going to go, yeah, stepping out from unguarded kitchen drains. Can I just check Sam, who's just running the technical? You can see both screens, can you? I just want to make sure you can see like my rhyming dictionary notes of the poem as we do this. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so veins, that'd be good with the, again, physical imagery and pulsing thing. That might be good. Slipping out from guarded kitchen drains, I'm sort of like thinking, I don't think that line really did aim us towards complicating. I don't know, okay. Slipping out, you know, again, if I'm editing this, I might go back and try to make this a bit more perfect, but we're just letting the rhyme and the rhythm lead us through and, you know, open up the mind, get some creation going on. That's the point of doing this. It's not to do something that I'm going to look back and say, yeah, I'm very proud of this poem. We can all, you know, we can have a after talk show where I now completely rip apart this poem. But I think that's, yeah, okay. Sticking up from guarded kitchen drain. So, yeah, okay. A faltering pulse is complicating. Might just go back and add that. Yeah, whatever. Again, I'm not going to worry too much about it. But I kind of got it through my head. A faltering pulse is complicating. The passions running in our veins. That's only 8 syllables. I need something there. I don't think we're going to go to my next writing partner, which is thesaurus.com. This live stream is sponsored by thesaurus.com and rhymezone.com, in the sense that they're not giving us any money. Appetites, yeah, it doesn't really bring us there. I mean, yeah, I'm not really happy with any of those. And passions, with the passions running in our veins. Well, okay. I'm gonna look at running because obviously, you know, I've sort of got this idea of passions in veins. Really, that's a you know, blood which flows. I wonder if I might actually search flowing. So, I like brimming, although it doesn't add as any syllables, but the passion. Okay, what about complicating the passions richly running through our veins. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of richly. Sorry, I meant to say Russian there, didn't I? You know, I've gone for it there because of the alliteration. I may, if I was going to, yeah, you know, I'm writing a sonnet a day, which this is going to be the sonnet today. I may between now and this evening try to slightly edit that. I don't know, richly. But think of what I'm not liking about that. I mean, for starters, it breaks the rhythm a little bit. The passions richly. Oh, okay, no, sorry, it's not. Yeah, again, we're not worrying, we're not over worrying about the iambic pentameter. Something does feel the pa, the pa, no, it's 5 beats. But also, I don't know, rich. Yeah, what does richly rushing mean? How do you rush richly? Um, ripened, I'm still not. And oddly, and I'm not ripened. I think it's because it's breaking the rhythm here. Oddly, the passions ripened is actually more. That fits the rhythm better, but I feel like that's obviously a natural way of speaking, and I don't particularly in this poem want to do that. I think this is trying to be quite a natural way of speaking. Yeah. The enriched passions for Russian. Yeah, I'm gonna go for that. And again, so this is talking about why to write in it. If I didn't have to fit into the rhythm, I don't know that I would be spending time trying to find a two-syllable word that would go into it. And I do think the poem is stronger for having that in a rhythmic sense. But if I was writing something that wasn't a sonnet, but was sort of going off this theme, I probably wouldn't look for that. But because I've tried to do it, this idea of enriched passions, I like the idea of passions that are on the brink of breaking out. An overdue passions, yeah, and again, if I was going to finalize this poem, go through an editing process, I think I probably would still change enriched. I'm not quite sure it's hitting the mark what I'm going for, but it's put an idea in my head of passions not being a static emotion or feeling, but actually being an emotion that grows, that evolves, that develops. And here we've got passions that are overdeveloped, knocking against like the walls of the veins, almost ready to pop. Passions. I think we can sort of relate to this. The idea of passions so powerful that they're pressing against the chest. I really like that idea. I don't know if this is the best possible use of that, but I think I like it. And that's because I've chosen to write in this form and do this exercise. Have now found this idea, which this is probably not the best example of it. Um, Maybe I will edit this poem into, keep the sonnet form, and I will, find a better way of describing it. Or I will take this idea and put it into another poem. But because I've gone through this exercise and had to force myself to think creatively about how to fit into this, I've stumbled across an idea that I really quite like. Okay, so anyway, that's our first stanza. We're going to move on to the second one. So when I've been speed writing them, different poets and different poems and different forms may just make this all, the first 8 lines, just all one idea. For me, just to sort of help me move down a poem, move along the process, I will now develop, throw in a new idea into it now. So what have we got in this first stanza? Hearts evacuating, which I've still not decided what I think that means, but it's a quite a nice image. So, I think what struck me in the word at this time, where most of the world is on lockdown, is this idea of love that is reaching beyond the physical confines. And I've got it here with the idea again of these passions that are, pushing out from the physical. And I think there's a nice thing here of the a metonym, which is a technical term for where, I think I'm using one, is it a synodoche? We're just going to assume that it's a metonym, where we associate an object with another object or emotional feeling. So when we talk about the crown, we say like the crown owed lands. Well, what we mean is the crown's a metonym there for the royal family. We're using the crown as a word that refers to the royal family. And so here we've got this idea where it's a quite common thing that hearts are a metonym for love, that they're one and the same. I'm trying to push it here. So hearts everywhere. I think I want to just sort of develop this idea a little bit. But I'm also liking that they've got this sort of physical thing here, the unguarded kitchen drain. So putting this emotional thing into a physical space. I think I also want to build on that. And maybe I might slightly change this image. I want to put something there like much passion bursting out of our veins, but that's quite a a violent and gory image that I don't really think is going to belong in this poem. But yeah, okay. So rich pressure is washing through our veins. And this is idea of the word faltering. So there's an element of being unsure. Um, so yeah, expanding on really this line. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought as I was writing that. Not going to be a lot of green vines with tendons. Seconds. That could probably work. Not a huge fan of massage. Trauma body. Yeah. Okay. I think that's kind of, you know, yeah, I'm happy. I'm not happy. I'm content with that line. And I think seconds could actually be quite working. I think that's gonna sort of be a good word, seconds, to bring us back to this concept of the um, of a reality, bringing back the theme of the lockdown. You're counting down the seconds. Yeah, I think that's going to work quite well. I wonder if though. I'm thinking though. I like that idea. But if I was going to do that, I'd probably want seconds to be the eighth line because that would quite naturally lead us onto the ninth line, having the bolter there. We're now going to like return to almost sort of like giving us a warning of the Volta, I suppose. It's sort of almost introducing a new idea slightly early so that could properly take place in the ninth line. Yeah, so I think that might work better. So, in actual fact, I probably want to have a new fifth line here. And there's very occasionally do this when I'm writing this because that sort of helps a bit. It can almost help to do it like this because now it helps you, you know, set you up to having an idea of what these two rhymes are going to be. Um, and yeah, I felt like we've sort of given up on this filtering bit, which I maybe want to return to. Perhaps I want to have something about comfort here. Yeah, the comfort is completing this idea of the filtering. I don't know if I do want a full stop, but I'll think about that. Um, and I think there's something else I want to do here is if we these lines are all very running on with each other, Hearts everywhere evacuating, slipping out from unguarded kitchen drains and faltering pulses complicating the enriched passions running through our veins. It might be nice here to add in a bit of changing up the rhythm, the cadence a bit. It might still end up being sort of like a bam bam, but giving like trying to actually really hammer home the stress is there. So I almost want to try and split this into 2 5-syllable bits just to add a bit of interest to the cadence. This isn't something when I'm writing these I'll probably think about, but I can sort of naturally feel we need that change here. So rushing through our veins. Yeah, I might have to change a bit about warming the body, but open our pore, kind of like that. Again, a bit of physicality. I might be interested to have a bit of a new idea here. And actually, I wonder if, so one way of changing up the cadence of a poem is to have an internal rhyme because it naturally creates more emphasis within a line. I do kind of want to, be good to, I've got an idea in the back of my head that will bring in doors to bring us, truly back to the physicality of the kitchen drains here. So be good to, what could we have here? Stores. Stores which warm the body. What kind of stores? Something compassionate. Open our pause for compassionate. Open our pause. Compassionate stores. Yeah, I mean, what's compassionate? Open pause to. Not quite making sense, really. Open our pause for compassionate stores. One of those things I can't quite explain what it is that isn't working here. Compassionate stores. Open our pause. The stores, don't warm the body. This is not, that metaphor is just not really properly coming together. Well, yeah. The only problem with this rhyme zone is that sometimes, I don't know if it's my accident, my accent doesn't really quite it. Ignores could be interesting. I mean, you would also have to change this. Yeah, it could be this kind of thing. I can ignores so that the things that normally we would be ignoring. You know, I think there's an example of this in this time where there's lots of things that we normally put to one side or have been forgetting that the isolation and quarantine has opened ourselves up to. That's interesting. Open our pause. Open our pause. Uh, okay, so that's 11 syllables, but it is 5 beats in the line. I'm not really loving soul. That's mostly because I feel like during this time I've used this idea of the soul and the being and the mind, over and over again. And I'm just a bit tired of it. But our lives ignored, our life ignored. But yeah, I think I'm just going to stick with it for now. Again, in an editing process, likely to change at least this section. But it's led us, it's got us to where we need to be. I'm going to have to change this, which open and pause to what the soul ignores. So something introducing this idea of the needing more tendons in a different way. And I probably could just do soul ignores warming the bodies and needing more tendons. Yeah, I'm just going to do that. Yeah, that gets us there again. Might change this. Maybe we're coming slightly to one note here, or again. I think a lot of this body passion imagery is very old imagery. So I'm not necessarily thrilled by this, but that's again not the point of the exercise as a whole. You don't want to be beating yourself up by not right off the top coming up with a groundbreaking poem. I'm not going to. This is undoubtedly going to be a bad poem, but it's gonna help me. It's already given me some ideas for things I can put into better poems. So ignores. We wanted to use that to reach doors. and what is locked behind? What is locked behind the doors? I'm looking for a word here. I kind of want to have a bit more physicality in the poem. You know, it's kind of an idea of like the paint, you know, the doors where the paint is peeling or flaking off. What is locked behind? Paint peeling. Aging doors. Decaying. I don't really love decaying. I think it's getting a bit too. Yeah, it's coming up with ideas of. Yeah, rotting, a bit too. Ideas of death. I would kind of like to have something that isn't, not literally decaying. An image, a physical image that evokes, you look at, okay, that's a rusting, decrepit door, rather than having to just say those words. Because I think we've had a lot of kind of abstraction in this poem, and having something that's like a good, powerful visual image will change things up a bit. What is locked behind? Chipped. Okay, yeah, splintering. Yeah, I like that. Sure. Needing more tender than what is locked behind splintering doors can be. Yeah. Is that a better word than unleashed? Released. Surrendered is interesting. I don't really think it. Yeah, it can be let out within mere seconds. Come back to me. I'm not happy about that. Can be unfettered is interesting. Doesn't quite fit the. Doesn't quite fit it. Can be unleashed. I've had ideas of like liquid here, liquid and gas. I think unleashed is a bit more of a solid word. I wonder if we went down that. Route. We might find some more interesting words. Can overflow within. Yeah, maybe. Overflow, over one. Can spill over. Yeah. Or even maybe just can burst. Yeah, and actually that lets us. Yeah, can burst within a matter of seconds. Yeah, yeah. I might change that though. What's locked? Held. Yeah. Contained. Yeah, I kind of what I kind of want to use there is contained, not secured. Oh, maybe what? Blah, 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 blah. Secured. Yeah, maybe secured. There's something about this internal rhyme. What's confined behind splintering doors? I think sometimes when an internal rhyme is too close together, this emphasis, where it ignores, that although it sort of super stresses, I think, a rhyme. Um, when it goes too gone, that is a bit, what's confined behind splintering doors. Probably don't really want that super stress here, but we're moving on. I can't. I realise I'm doing a lot of. I don't think there's a camera option here, so I'm doing a lot of absolutely amazing hand gestures and throwing my arms up in despair that you're just going to have to pick up from my lack of enthusiasm. But I think that's going to work. So, okay, so this is our first 8 lines, and so here we're gonna this is going to be the Volta where the poem shifts. So what are we kind of good to look back on? What have we got here? It is this has ultimately become this idea of passions that we restrain, that we confine in our normal lives, that have that are building up and building a passion and coming forward again. Also, I'm doing lots of really great hand movements, and I'm just doing it for myself. Um, and I think we've sort of reached this point where we're going to talk about okay, so what happens when these burst? And I think I maybe want to. I don't really quite know how this became a quarantine poem, but it is undoubtedly a quarantine poem. And maybe expanding on that would be an interesting idea. Um, okay. I'm sorry that isn't on camera. I'm just trying to have a little bit of brain food here. Mm. So, and I think as well, I know I want to start this with a trochee. So start with a hard syllable. I just sort of feel like again, um, if you just while I'm trying to like think about things, go back to this rhythm thing here. I can be honest, if I didn't look this up about an hour before I was doing this thing, I probably wouldn't be keep using trochee and spondee while I'm talking about this, because it is, you know, it's not something I write about a lot when I'm writing poetry, but I think learning things like this is really important because it just lets you know it's a language, it's a tool you can use. So I'm saying use a trochee, or maybe even oh, look at this, is it dactyl? Yeah, nice dactyl. Um, I just because I have read about these things and tried to use these things, and you will occasionally try to write um, things, you know, in a purely spondee, trochee, iambic matter meter. Um, you know, I've got that almost muscle memory built in, and so it's just I'm just sort of in my head going, thinking that I just sort of sense that I need that. This needs to, especially now we're hitting the vault, it needs to like set off on a strong foot. That's a very intelligent pun there. Converse within a matter of seconds. And so I'm kind of thinking about the ideas of community support, which has become so important, and the ways. I don't know. This doesn't need to be a political poem, but it's almost becoming that because I'm thinking of ideas of the day is going to be, you know, week 5 or 6 of the clapping for the NHS this evening. Um, and there's a lot about the way that this is a social media movement that has been almost hijacked by the government. Um, so I want to have this idea of like, we're not so often feel like we need to look out for purely ourselves, and that is the normal way to be. And then when we're placed in unnatural situations like this isolation, suddenly what we're told is normal um, is revealed to be completely abnormal, and actually the support and compassion we show for each other comes through. I think that's what I want to talk about, and you know, I want to use all of those ideas in the next 6 lines, which is a completely reasonable thing to think you can do. So, and try to think of some sort of image that's going to work within what we've already got there. I don't want to. I'd like this to be maybe a bit more, yeah, change things so it's not purely about this idea of the heart and the body again. So what could we? I suppose since this has been so domestic with kitchen drains and doors, it'd be good to move this out of the street. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone's I've seen, as well as especially Rainbow that I've got a problem with. Yeah, there's been quite a lot of street art in support of NHS and other key workers. Yeah, not really the rainbow. It's just a bit of an empty word here, although it's kind of a nice. I mean, one thing a bit confusing because I'm not literally talking about sketches of rainbows. Pavements. Unless I suppose painted and then sketches is a bit confusing. Um, I didn't actually end up using the word compassion, did I? And the thing I'm not liking about that is that although passions and compassions are two separate words, it does feel like it's a bit of a repetition. Um, payments. Yeah, that's I kind of thought, man, I was going to ignore that I'm not really having this. But I did kind of think support was not going to be a helpful word to us. And although voices only really gives us choices, or even choices. I think that's definitely a better thing for us to aim to. So I wonder if maybe need to get away from pavements because I don't think that's helping us out here. But supportive. There we go. Right, complete blank in there. Hatch. Right. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not really happy with that line, but I think it gets us where we need to go. So voices, and then we've got choices. I think that kind of goes to what I was talking about, the idea that when we have these choices, true choices. Yeah, I can definitely work that. I guess what I try to do, because I'm overly happy with that idea, and it's yeah. Is try to. I've still not quite got that physicality that I was wanting, so I'm going to try and use this line to expand more on the line before and really get in that physicality. So what do I want to have here? I've got a line sort of missing some words in my head, but it ends in slogans. And yeah, I was just thinking, is it worth me? Probably not worth me. Beating myself up over that line because there's not actually going to be any good words there. Yeah, all going to be kind of interesting because they've got a lot of the body parts, but I think that's what we really want to go for. Employs my or enjoys. Blah, 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 blah. Walkers. I don't know. Walkers strident. Yeah, okay. True. What are they? What are they? Prompt. I think just reminds is just a very blank word. Um, I'm just gonna, yeah, brings us back to. I really think this is missing a syllable, but I think it's got that. Brings us back to. Which one? I mean, it's got enough beats in it. Um, yeah, just gonna go with that. And then it was employs or enjoys, or even destroys. Employs. Um, and I know here because of employs being a verb, either I've got to make it a little bit unnatural, which I don't particularly want to do, or it's going to have to lead on into the final rhyming couplet. Or destroys could end it. So I'm missing, I'm definitely missing a beat in this line. And something about unnatural. constructed. I'm having kind of an idea of how. I thought I have that book. I've been reading a lot of books about the shape of cities and how urban planning can affect, has a powerful effect on the way that societies, cultures can work together or not work together. So that's an interesting idea. That our forged separation destroys. Again, I do a lot of Nightsville ones, but that owl. It's 5 beats. So I think we're going to go for it. And I think what I want to do here, so we're reaching the rhyming couplet, and I still am not a fan of how abstract this sonnet is. I want to have a nice physical image to finish it off, and a couplet is a very nice way of doing that. The end couplet in a sonnet really is there to tie up the ideas in the poem, and can be a good place to introduce something new, to sort of really take things away and shake up the sonnet a bit. It'd be nice to just have this like purely physical image. I feel this is a poem that's very telling people things and not showing people, which is something I don't usually like. The poem is Letters here. Oh, I didn't mention I really like Forged Separation. Nice pun there. It was always nice when you just come across a pun in a poem. So nice physical image. I mean, now I am thinking of all the the rainbows drawings children have been placing in their windows. So that would be a good image to have. David Harvey, Rebel Cities was the book I was thinking of. Yeah, that's on the side. Anyway, but yeah. So what would do that? I mean, Windows feels like a natural. I mean, Windows and Heroes. I think I could do that, but Oh, I think that's probably a couplet I would actually just hate myself too much for writing. So we're not going to do that. But Windows, we've got any more options there? Yeah, window is not really helping me out as a word. I suppose as well, I need to try and think of this. Let me try and think of like the noise. It's interesting, you know, noise can be something you do on your own, separating, but in a crowd, the noise comes together to form a whole new noise of its own. So that's an interesting thing to think about. Yeah, just thinking of, you know, pans, the pots and pans could be in one line, and that would lead us into the next one. But pans are not helping me out either. What can we do? God knows if anyone's still watching this, but if you've got a nice couplet for me to just finish this off, oh, I'd appreciate it. So, yeah, that can be a useful one. Tether is interesting. Tether. That just doesn't feel like a word that really, you know, love itself in this time. Tether. Um, I suppose really another good thing with rhyme couplets is to try and bring back some of what else has gone in the poem. I don't really have sort of moved away from this opening line of evacuating, so that one might be nice, something nice to sort of bring back to it. So, what about? Okay, so now I'm sort of thinking if I wanted to end the poem on an idea of like another heart slipping away, one more heart slips away. What could I use in the first line? I don't know, idea like a drawing of a rainbow where children used to play, and one more heart slips away. But that is not in rhythm at all. And there's a little. I want to cover this hard because they can often just be a little bit too coy and yeah, cloying. Okay, display. Display. Okay. Much I just would get. Well, do you know what? There's the couplet. Yeah. Okay. So there we go. That's the speed sonnet. So yeah, I'm not happy with that rhyming couplet. But I don't want to spend another 2 hours while I just beat myself up trying to improve it. If people want to, I think I probably am going to change a few things. So if you look at my Instagram later, you can see some sort of edits and stuff I've done. That I'm almost certainly going to change that rhyming couplet. But that's we're not gonna. Yeah, that's just going to have to do for now, I think. So let's sort of just sum up what I've done. What have I got out of doing this process? Um, I really like this first line, which I've taken from the poem. Um, the line in the poem it's come from is Facebook makes me choose a legacy contact for when I am dead, and hearts everywhere are evacuating. The common heart leaves no passwords nor puzzles for us. So that line is really actually more quite literal about actual emoji hearts, which is interesting. Um, so I've taken that in directions that are not there in the original poem. Um, and I really enjoy what's going on in this first half of the poem. I'm a bit tired. I need to make sure for the next 8 days of writing this sonnet, so I'm just not avoid all images of the body and the soul and whatnot. Very bored with writing about that. But this idea of the passions overflowing the body, I think would be interesting. And that's something I wouldn't write if I hadn't gone through this process. It's interesting what you learn when you're doing these about having to fit in a form, what you learn about form, something here when I sort of talked about using the rhyme, that's not something someone's ever really taught me. But when you go through this process and learn that and feel what that is doing with your words. I think that's you can pick up things like that. And I did not know. I kind of had a thought of evacuating. That it would have something to do with quarantine, but I didn't really know that. So it's not like I've been mostly what I've been writing about is about quarantine. I've kind of avoided it as a subject because I don't find it that interesting, and lots of poets are writing about it, so let them write about it, and I can write about fucking witches and whatever I've been writing about. But this poem is really kind of it. What will I do with this poem after? I may just leave it like this. I don't care. 31 poems in a month. Cannot pretend this is going to be one of the favourite poems that I've written, but I have absolutely written worse poems this month. So that will. This is probably in the bottom third of them. But I think there's a thing who's like, and I do like this idea of confined splinter indoors. This thing I've talked about I want to bring physical into it again. Is through doing this process and writing a lot and writing something like this that I can do in that tests a lot of my skills in an hour and a half. Has made me realise things like that I can't say. It's not that I'm the first person to realise things. That was even the first time I realised that it's something that I know, but it's a good way of helping you put into words and put into mind how that kind of thing works. Yeah, if I was going to, if I wanted to take this poem forward, which I'm not sure I do, because again, lots of people are going to be writing about the subject of the quarantine and the lockdown. And I just don't particularly find that that's a subject I want to write about. I'd almost certainly completely get rid of this. Maybe have some more ideas a bit. Try to write it completely new, but very definitely don't like the way that it's been written here. Yeah, I don't, as far as I know, people have not been asking any questions. But if people, when they're watching this later or after this, would like to ask some questions about the process of writing a sonnet, please do. Or even just writing in form and what it can do for you. And absolutely, I don't know, I don't keep up with what like the official prompts are for a day. I'd be surprised. I'd at least one. There seems to be loads of groups who give these prompts. I'd be surprised if at least one of them didn't do something on the sonnet. But yeah, certainly if you feel like you would watch this and you would like to write a sonnet, please share them with me. And I think that is going to end me for the day. So 20 minutes over time, but I did spend about 20 minutes longer explaining sonnets than I meant to. So I feel this is a sonnet written in 90 minutes, and that's not bad. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. And look on the WinchesterFest Facebook page because there's lots of great events. And I know this evening I'm going to be joining in with Spark, so that'll be good. I've just seen Sam's face. I don't think he's going to like do some sort of announcing. No, okay, right. Thank you very much for watching, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.